got a big battle in front of us, baby. And it's just starting. So let's get funky like a monkey. For 15 years, the American dream has done it with you. Don't fail me now. Lord, don't fail me now.
All right.
What's poppin', boys and girls? Welcome to the one and only Wrestlebros right here on YouTube. Yeah,
Good. All right. Let's start off with Adam Pearce, since I have no idea what the hell's going on. How is Adam Pearce getting a title match at the Royal Rumble? I don't know. Can it be good? Of course. Can it be bad? Of course. I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know what's the thought process. I don't know where it's going. But it's happening. And Lou, do you know why it's happening?
because Vince McMahon allowed it to. In theory, I think the storyline is. I don't know what it is. I know that Adam Pearce has been presented as an authority figure on WWE TV for the last several months, and he's actually done a really commendable job in that role. Now, I don't know whether or not this match is going to make a lot of sense on its face. Listen, for wrestling fans that that are a little more knowledgeable outside of just the WWE programming, listen, Adam Pearce wrestled for 20 years. He was a multi-time NWA champion. He worked in all the different regional independent territories. Probably people might know him best for his work in the NWA and his work for Ring of Honor. They would know him best in those areas, but he never worked in the WWE. So for fans, don't recognize his work. And I think that although it's mentioned, and Michael Cole mentioned it on commentary that, hey, Adam Pearce was a former wrestler. Of course, he took the dig that said he was never good enough to make it in WWE.
Which I don't understand. What's the point of the dig if you want us to be invested in something that people are probably not going to be invested in to begin with?
I think the idea behind that is that with a guy like Adam Pearce to say that when he made it to WWE, he made it as an executive or an official within WWE, but didn't make it as a wrestler. That's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to point emphasis to the fact that Adam Pearce was a wrestler, but what they're trying to do is make an emphasis of him being several levels down from Roman Reigns, but meaning that he wasn't able to level up to get to the WWE. Do I think that that's an appropriate dig? No. I would prefer that Michael Cole didn't say that, but it's said. What's done is done. This match can go one of several ways. This match could be a pseudo squash. Pseudo squash meaning that Roman Reigns basically goes into this match taking it as a joke, and he treats Adam Pearce as a joke as the match begins, and then Adam Pearce bows up and he kind of educates Roman Reigns momentarily about why he was a wrestler, although he never made it in the WWE, but he knows how to defend himself. He can acquit himself very well. Then he gets shut down and beaten up. There could be a story, you got whatever, I think it's like maybe 3 or 4 televisions before you get to the Royal Rumble. They might change the story and insert somebody else in the match. I'm not sure how this is going to work with Adam Pearce in this match. Is it nice to see Adam Pearce knowing that he's getting his first WWE match and it's against Roman Reigns for the WWE title, or the Universal title, excuse me? Yeah, it seems kind of cool on its face if you're Adam Pearce and for those who watched his work. But do I think that to a general WWE audience that they're going to look at this as an exciting main event level match? At the moment, the answer is no. As the weeks progress going into the Royal Rumble, that may change. It may get better or it may get worse. Knowing that with the Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman package, how well they've been able to make everything look, this might be the greatest challenge that they've had so far in terms of trying to make this look good. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt about the possibility of being able to make this look good, but I have my doubts. So I want to trust that the WWE has a plan, because I know that everything with Roman Reigns over the last several months that he's been back has been nothing but gold. So I don't have any reason to believe that this will be no different when we actually get to the end, which is in the Royal Rumble.
Yeah. Well, before I give my thoughts, let me tell you how we got here. So on SmackDown, there was a gauntlet match to become #1 contender. And recent history, it's one of the few things that WWE has done, obviously by accident, but they did it with a few people. Kofi comes to mind, where he had a great performance in the gauntlet. I think he did it twice, right? They did like two damn near back to back, like I don't know how many weeks apart, but during the whole Kofi Mania thing, he had a gauntlet match. I feel like before that, Ali did it too, and it just never came. Nothing came out of it because he had to. He got hurt, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So they figured out a little mini formula. If you want to get somebody over as quick as possible, you put them in a gauntlet, let them kind of be the MVP of the gauntlet.
Put them in a marathon match and let them go.
Yeah. So shockingly, in this match, that was Shinsuke's role. In a match that had Daniel Bryan in it, it had Rey Mysterio in it, who hasn't been getting used at all. But yeah, they gave Shinsuke that Kofi role, which was weird, but he came off as a total babyface out of nowhere. The best he's looked in a while. He looked great. He looked really good, especially when he was in there with Daniel Bryan. Because you can just tell Daniel Bryan is out there to have the best match possible. He's not gonna let Shinsuke take the night off. Like, come on, brother. You're gonna bring your best stuff. You're gonna bring your best stuff against Daniel Bryan. You better. So yeah, that was a fun little interaction. He beat Daniel Bryan clean, which eventually led to Roman and Jey Uso coming out, putting the beats to Shinsuke. Then some beating up Pearce as well, and then just kind of dumping him on top of Shinsuke, and that's what led to the win for Pearce. But yeah, so that's how we got there. So Shinsuke potentially, I think if there were fans there, I think they'd get behind them. I think there might be a bunch of fans at home right now that kind of want to see something with Shinsuke in a main event, at least get a main event match in the near future, or get an opportunity. So we'll see what happens with that. Obviously, there's no real fans. They're plugging in audio, so we don't know how they really feel. But I felt, if there were fans there, they would be completely behind Shinsuke after that performance. So yeah, so Adam Pearce, Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble. I'm not against it for the same reasons as you. Paul Heyman and Roman, they seem to be some of the few guys that have some pull. They kind of are in control of their narrative. They can veto stuff. Apparently, they vetoed the Damian Priest thing. They're like, nah, that doesn't make any sense. Which it's true, it doesn't make any sense.
And they're right about that.
Yeah, so thank God, because they would have brought up Damian Priest. I'm not a Damian Priest guy at all, by any means. But if you're gonna bring somebody up, have a real plan for them. Come on, don't just throw them into some random storyline, and then when the storyline's over, these guys have nothing to do. Listen,
Damian Priest is notwithstanding the way that he lost to Karrion Kross last week on NXT TV, but he's a guy that has a lot of upside and a lot of value. To bring him into a situation like this, which would make very little sense, because in order to have potentially a Damian Priest versus Roman Reigns match, first of all, you have to introduce Damian Priest to the wide scale WWE audience. If NXT is only bringing in 800,000 viewers a week versus SmackDown brings in 2.5 million, like let's be for real. There's a lot of people that probably don't know who Damian Priest is. So to introduce him into that kind of storyline against the top guy, there's, unless you're going to put the title on him, he's going to lose, and then there's only one direction for him to go, and that's down. So Paul Lee and Roman Reigns, if they vetoed this as has been reported, they actually did the right, and believe it or not, they actually are doing Damian Priest a tremendous favor.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. I was like, Damian Priest is lucky that these guys stood up for what's right, and we're like, look, this doesn't make any sense. And the last thing you want is to be in the middle of something that makes no sense at all as your debut. It's like, come on.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no way to recoup from that.
Let's not start let's not start like this. But yeah, so I don't know where they're going with this. Like, I am not a huge fan of changing matches. Obviously, if they can get somebody who would get us excited to kind of step in and go, look, this guy's an executive. He's not a wrestler anymore. He's retired. He's been retired for 6 years or whatever. It's like, stop avoiding the big names or whatever. I'm not retired. Fight me. Which probably would have been a good spot for Goldberg or somebody like that. But if they are going through with the match, I think I would have preferred Michael Cole stay shut or go, look, we don't know anything about this guy. Obviously we're familiar with his work. We've never seen him work here. We don't know what he's capable of, and leave it completely up to mystery and let it be a pleasant surprise later. Instead of going, look, this guy sucks. This is going to be garbage. Don't watch.
There's another way to go with that, is that meaning if the WWE could easily get footage from, his work, they could easily make a call to Ring of Honor or to the NWA or any other promotion he's worked for and get footage and be able to show it on their television and, show his best highlights and show him in the best possible light. I just thought of this idea, and it would have been kind of cool. Let's just say that Samoa Joe was not announcing on Raw and he was the color man on SmackDown. It would have been a situation to where Joe has had enough, and he's just kind of like, wait a minute, what's going on here? He's the champ, and now he's trying to punk out executives, puts down the mic and says, all right, big man, you want a match? Come get it with me. The idea for that match would probably be to beat Joe's swan song as a means to get that one last big match, and then basically Roman beats him down, and that's the end for Samoa Joe. But at least figuratively, if he's figured in to be in the announcer role, moving forward, that would have kind of been a cool way to be able to, give him his exit, give him that last big match, and be able to continue the Roman Reigns, heel storyline going.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. Somebody steps in who, look, what are you doing? Why don't you fight somebody who hasn't been retired for 6 years? Stop playing games. That would be great.
And the WWE fans know Samoa Joe because he's been wrestling there for the last 5 or 6 years.
So if they do plan on getting out of this match, it would have to be somebody who will get people excited. Like I said, if they're going through with it, then I think give us the pleasant surprise. Don't just bury him. Obviously he doesn't need to win. He's not going to wrestle anymore after this, but give him some shine. Let the fans get behind him. Make it interesting. Make it an exciting match where he kind of comes from behind and, makes a little bit of a comeback and, it's like, oh, okay, this guy's not a pushover. It was not an easy win. And then that's it. I think everybody can go home happy.
I think the difficulty with Adam Pearce in this role, it has nothing to do with his ability in the ring. Anybody who's watched him knows he's an excellent in-ring worker. The issue becomes is that he has zero equity in the WWE in terms of being a wrestler. So when you don't have that equity, and let's just say that if he would have been a guy who wrestled in the WWE a decade ago, but he was popular with the audience then, you could have easily been able to plug him in that role, and then the audience will remember him, and you can tell a story around that. Unfortunately, he's never wrestled in the WWE, so his equity is just based on being a backstage official. And unfortunately, in the WWE, they've done such a bad job of giving these people names, faces, personalities, whatever, that the audience can say, okay, this is such and such, and this is so and so. So they don't have that. WWE just doesn't do a good enough job in, giving the bit players, for lack of a better term, giving the bit players not shine, but recognition to where we know name to face. And if they get put in situations where they're pressed by said heel or whomever, the audience has some recognition of who this person is and what could happen in said role. So again, I think very highly of Adam Pearce as a wrestler. I watched him wrestle when back in his day. He was very, very good. Unfortunately, like I said, I'm a little concerned about, hopefully this is not the first dud that comes out of this Roman Reigns Paul Lee duo on SmackDown. But again, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm hoping that this comes out to be a pleasant home run, and not a strikeout at the plate.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Then let's go to Raw, where Triple H came to save the day. Now this time it's not through any fault of his own. This is not Triple H thrusting himself into the spotlight. This was clearly out of necessity, because it looks like they did not have a lot of people at the show. I don't know how many talents they have with COVID or not, but
well, we know one who does.
Yeah, Drew has COVID, so that's one person that they have to replace.
Sucks.
They didn't name anybody else, but it's clear that they're missing a few names that were being utilized on the show a couple weeks ago, and they're no longer there, at least for a couple weeks. Yeah, so I guess Triple H came to save the day, which is fine, but you get a comeback from Triple H, and you kind of just throw it away. He comes out like he's got something to say. Randy Orton cuts him off. Hey man, so you're here for an announcement. You're gonna do me a favor or what? Triple H is like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, you're here for something. You're, obviously. So what can it be? It must be to say something. So you're gonna give me the title, or you're gonna give me the 30th spot in the Royal Rumble? What are you here for? And Triple H is not having it. Randy eggs him on, pretty much, ask him, does he want to fight? And Triple H is like, look, you should know better, and I get nothing from having a fight with you. He's basically trying to teach him about the match situation with Alexa Bliss. You didn't do it because you get nothing out of it, basically. And he goes, I don't get nothing out of this, so I'm out of here. Randy tells him, oh, I guess you left your balls in Stephanie's purse or whatever. Then Triple H gets mad. It's funny. The baby faces always hit first in WWE. It's hilarious.
Well, that tells you who won the verbal joust.
Exactly. So the heel gets you upset, and you have no comeback. So, and whatever. It's fine. It's not a big deal. It's just wrestling. But this leads to the main event match. Nice little detail that I was concerned about. Normally, it's not a big deal. Somebody calls you out. You're not scheduled for a match. You go to the back, you get changed, you come out, you're in your gear and all this stuff, hair, makeup, all all the fixing.
Yeah, you're ready to rock and roll. Yeah.
And I was like, it would be, and when I was watching the show, which normally I'm okay with people going to the back, changing whatever, but while I was watching, I was based on the circumstances, I was like, it would be so weird if Triple H was to change his outfit and put his trunks on and
Put on his wrestling gear, yeah.
his full getup, which is a lot of stuff. He gets his fist taped and professionally taped. I was like, this would be a lot for Triple H to get changed and whatever. It would be nice if he comes out in regular clothes. He did come out in regular clothes. It looked like he just changed his shirt. So I think that was a nice little detail, nicely done. But they basically fought for 3 minutes, and then you had the whole Fiend situation, the lights going, teasing, the lights going on and off, and the flickering and all this stuff. Alexa Bliss comes out and throws the fireball in Orton's face. I don't have a lot to say about this, other than even though WWE might be missing, let's say 10 people, because of COVID, they have over 100 people on that damn roster.
They got more than enough bodies to fill.
And I know that the ratings have been low, and there's probably a lot of pressure to get the ratings up. So you want to have Ric Flair out there, you want to have Triple H and Goldberg and all these big names and all these guys of the past. But when your back's against the wall and you're missing people and you don't know what to do, that's when you give the newcomers or the people that don't get utilized, that's when you give them a chance, an opportunity. These opportunities don't come for them like often, Put them in an important match. Give them a chance that they normally would not get, and see what they do. See if you can create some excitement. New faces is exciting. Or people who are underutilized being utilized, that's exciting. Believe it or not. It doesn't just have to be somebody who was popular 15 years ago or whatever. Like, stop relying on people from the past. It's great to have them, but it shouldn't be out of desperation that you use them. You should have a good plan for these people. You should bring them out with a plan. And in case of an emergency, you don't go to them. You go to the talent that's been there that hasn't been getting used. Bring them out. Give them more to do. Give them longer matches. Put them in a match that you normally would not see them in. That's what I would do. I think that's what makes sense to me. You're giving all these segments to Triple H and you get nothing out of it. You got nothing out of it.
Well, I think in a situation like this, knowing that the person, knowing that Drew McIntyre went down with COVID, that's probably the worst piece to lose on the board, because he's the champion. He is basically the centerpiece of the program. And Drew had 2 segments on the show. Obviously, he recorded promos from his home, and his promos were actually really good. Now, obviously, he was supposed to work a match against Orton, which when it was announced, I just thought to myself, well, why are we doing this again? It's just like, we've only seen this match about half a dozen times over the last, 3 months, 4 months. You got to give it some air, let it breathe for a while. The situation that came about creatively, knowing that they had to insert Triple H in there, as a very, very last minute substitute, actually worked out really well, because of everything that happened last week when Randy Orton basically took the piss out of all the legends. Triple H, as a guy who is essentially the legends, he's essentially a peer to them, or one generation closer, or half a generation closer than Orton is. It made a lot of sense for Triple H to stand up on their behalf. So the story made sense.
What's the payoff, Luke?
Well, the thing is, there's gonna be no payoff.
There's no payoff.
No, there's no. Listen, in this situation, in this situation, what the payoff is essentially is you want to have a main event match to put on. That's what the payoff is. It's not. This was not intended for Hunter to go in there and become a part of the show as an on-air persona. That's not what this was intended to be. Now, I do agree with you that in situations like this is where, we've bemoaned about this on and on. It's ad nauseum. We've already done this about how WWE's done such a poor job of building their undercard and building the guys underneath to where when situations like this happen, you can say, all right, so-and-so, we need you tonight. And that they have enough equity and they got enough steam behind them that even if they're not quite there, in a situation like this, it's a believable next step to where the audience buys them in that role. And then even if they lose to Orton in a match, let's say they have an actual match and Orton gets a win, that person gets enough of a rub if they push Orton to a limit to where like, oh, it was this close, we were an eyelash away from seeing a major upset, that you can have that match, do the gimmick with Alexa Bliss to continue the Fiend storyline, and then from there you benefit in multiple ways, because obviously you get the main event match, so you get Orton featured in that main event match. You hopefully elevate a guy who was in the upper middle card. You might elevate that person up to the main event, and then you continue your storyline, and you've had a successful show, at least at the top of the card. You were able to transition it. But when WWE does a fantastic job at the top and then everything else is kind of like, come as you may kind of deal, that's where problems arise, because when you lose the centerpiece, because make no mistake about it, Drew McIntyre on that Raw roster is the centerpiece of the show. Once he went down, and we wish Drew a speedy recovery, man. Nothing but love, brother. Hopefully you get better. But when you lose that centerpiece, it's a huge, huge loss. And unfortunately, you got to scramble to make it work. WWE did what they could in that situation, and featuring Triple H, not a bad call under the circumstances, but it does point a glaring light to the fact that they have to do a better job, WWE does, of building their undercard and making more stars underneath, because this was a situation where, if, let's say, for example, if a Keith Lee would have been ready, or if a Sheamus would have had more steam to him, or goodness gracious, I'm kind of drawing blanks, but let's just say that, if, let's say, that Randy Orton may have gotten into the face of the Hurt Business, that would have been able to give Bobby Lashley a spot. And I'm exaggerating, because obviously Lashley's in a different storyline, but I'm just giving ideas as to, or if a Matt Riddle would have been better positioned. There's a lot of different things that you can do to make the shows better, and unfortunately, in this instance, they had to do what they had to do. So under the circumstances, I'm okay with it, but it's not the ideal, that's for sure.
All right, so let's talk free agency. Wrestling free agency.
Oh, yeah, when you talk about free agency, I was about to start talking about baseball, brother.
No.
Wrong podcast, boys and girls. Wrong podcast.
All right. So apparently Dalton Castle is a free agent. That's a good one. Is there anywhere you want to see Dalton Castle go?
Man, it's so weird, because I wish under normal circumstances, if it wasn't in the COVID era, and I'm a huge fan of Dalton Castle. When I watch Dalton Castle now, I know that he wears the back brace, because I know that he had a back injury, and he wears the brace, and that's what keeps him. He's still fantastic in the ring, but you can tell that back injury slowed him down a little. under normal circumstances, believe it or not, I'd probably think of him as like maybe Impact might be a good place for him to land, only because I think he would be able to continue the gimmick there. I would say no to AEW because it seems like it's the land of gimmicks, and I don't know whether or not he would be properly presented there. And in WWE, I would say no because I don't know if the Dalton Castle gimmick would work even in the NXT environment. So I would probably say either Impact or even New Japan, because I think he's great in Ring of Honor. It's just a matter he's been there too long. So to move him to another place, I would probably think, and it's weird for me to say this because I'm usually would not go this route, but I would probably go to Impact Wrestling because I think he can pursue the gimmick there, and that could be his next level up. And then from there, you could start talking about WWE or AEW at that point, just so he can get a little more exposure. As much as that is, because I know Impact doesn't get many eyeballs, but it'd be like the next level for him.
Okay. We already spoke about him last week, but Jay White, I don't know if this is a work or not. They're doing a really good job if it is a work. I'm sure everyone wants him, but what makes sense? What do you think will work? Where should he go? Jay White, assuming he really is a free agent, what do you want to see?
NXT, brother. WWE. There's just, I look at Jay White and I look at his presentation. It's weird because I recently saw a photo of Seth Rollins dressed in the white trunks that he would wear. And I was like, oh, he and Jay White are like each other's doppelganger. They're just dressed almost exactly alike.
What's funny? They're about the same size as well.
Yeah. I look at Jay White, and realistically, I think that NXT is his best destination only because of everything about his presentation as is right now and his skill set. It works perfect with the NXT television presentation. There might be some folks that would say, hey, why not AEW? I just think that it's a matter that the way that he's presented would probably not, it's almost like a square peg in a round hole type thing in AEW, where AEW would probably have to work on bringing in different talent and, making some alterations to their overall presentation in order for a guy like that to fit in and be able to work at multiple levels within AEW versus in the WWE on NXT. From a talent perspective, I think that that's like, hand to glove type of thing from a talent perspective. He's got a lot of guys to work there. I look at him and Balor, they seem to be compatible, could be compatible in-ring opponents. Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Ciampa, Thatcher, maybe Kushida in an introductory type role. He's got, that's already, I don't know, 6 or 8 guys that I've just threw off the top of my head. And it's just, I think that for Jay White, it's a perfect fit for him to go to NXT. And if there's any interest, let's just say that this is for real, that Jay White is considering leaving Japan and coming to the United States. If I'm the WWE, I'm like, man, listen, make any overture you can and give, and try to give him the best possible deal, because in all honesty, a talent like that doesn't come around every day. He's really, really good.
All right, we still have Tessa Blanchard, who's unsigned.
I can't. From a talent perspective, I can't understand for the life of me why AEW has not signed her.
Maybe they've made her offer.
AEW needs, and I say this with all due respect, because the AEW women's division is not very good as an overall. Outside of Thunder Rosa and Serena Deeb, once you get past the two of them, the skill level goes down. And then the people who have had a chance to really get over have not done very well. Britt Baker has been a tremendously pleasant surprise. Nyla Rose needs to be completely rehabbed. Hikaru Shida has done an admirable job as the AEW Women's Champion, but it's time to take the belt off of her. It's time to move it on to somebody else and give it a little more steam, because it almost seems like when I'm watching Shida, particularly now in this program that she's working with Abaddon, I'm like, it's not helping Abaddon at all, because Abaddon is a very her persona is a very limited persona. There's only but so much you can do with Abaddon, and to put her in the ring with Shida is actually doing more to harm Shida than it is to help Abaddon. So it doesn't make any sense. If you're going to put her in there with Shida, it has to be, a quick program, maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks. Have Abaddon get her heat on Shida, put her down. Shida overcomes, beats her, we move on. Because to have them work a program, and this is already going on week 5 or whatever it is, it's just like it's time to quit it. We gotta get the AEW title off of Shida, and I think it might be Britt Baker who should take the title off of her, so like that there's some stakes when we finally get to the match with Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa, we can have the AEW Women's title as the trinket to really make that match much more appealing. So for Tessa Blanchard to not be signed by AEW, she would be automatically the centerpiece. And I'm not saying that AEW has not made overtures. I have no idea. But the fact that she hasn't signed with any of the major companies at this point, there's something off about that. A talent like that to still be on the board all these months later, and she's still available and no one signed her, there's something that's off here.
Oh yeah, it's her.
Well, I mean, listen,
I'm sure she's gonna get it's crunch time. She's gonna get offers from multiple places, and she's gonna be able to make a decision and go where she wants to go. So it'll work out for. I think it'll work out for her. It's just what she does with it. That's all that matters. So we'll see.
Listen, I hope so too, because like I said, she's a fantastic in-ring talent. So I'm surprised that after all this time now, we're talking close to a year at this point, and she's still on the board. I mean, that just screams red light to me.
Maybe she is signed.
No, highly unlikely. Highly unlikely, because that would have been something that would have. Listen, the company that would have signed her would have put out press releases and all types.
Not if she's debuting at the Rumble.
No. If that happens, we're gonna there's gonna have to be a way that I could be able to say, you know what, you're right, I'm wrong. Bet a 6-pack on it or something. But that would be really, really cool. But in today's pro wrestling, to hold that card so close to the vest, I don't know.
I don't know if you've noticed, and the one good thing about COVID, there aren't people around to see things happening. There's a lot of secrets that, we get a lot of nice little surprises. Well, people aren't snitching like they were doing in 2019.
All I know is that if Tessa Blanchard debuts for the WWE in the Women's Royal Rumble match, oh boy, that will be huge, ginormous. It would be huge.
And anyone who thinks she's not capable of handling that spot has not seen enough of her.
What they're talking about,
because she would thrive kill it
from an in-ring bell to bell thing. The answer is absolutely, she's ready for the moment. Now, from an emotional, mental, psychological, whatever I can't say one way or the other because I don't know her.
Yeah, purely character. Tessa Blanchard, the character, is ready for primetime main event. Strap the rocket. Based on what I've seen, and I was not a fan of her. She had to win me over. No. When she first got the Impact, I was not a fan, and I thought she was a little bit overrated, and some of the stuff was a little weird, looked a little weird for me that she was doing. She figured it out in my eyes, and I think her intensity is lights out as a heel or as a babyface. I think like her aggression, aggressiveness, speed. Not a lot of women have the type of speed that she does in the ring. She moves like one of the guys. She just moves differently than a lot of women. It's really fun to watch.
I will say this: the one thing that I do notice, and this is not meant to be as a dig to the other women wrestlers that have worked against her, against Tessa Blanchard. But when I would watch her, you know, when I saw her wrestle in Mexico, I saw her wrestle for WoW. I saw her work in Impact. Um, and even when she did the Mae Young, I think when she did the Mae Young Classic, I think this was back in 2017, maybe. That was the one time where I looked at Tessa and thought that she's in her element, meaning that from a talent to talent perspective, she's in the ring with people that are at her level. You know, when she worked in the other places, it almost seemed like the other women were. And it has nothing to do with. It's not a knock on these women. It's just a matter that Tessa Blanchard is just one. She's one level above. She's just a level above so many of the women that she's worked with, and this is the reason why I've kind of made an adamant statement about AEW signing her, because somebody like that is the centerpiece for your division, and it does one of two things. What it does is that it either encourages the other girls to step up and get to her level, or AEW's eyes are opened and then they start realizing this is the type of talent we need to get, and then they can start analyzing their roster and then bringing in talents, you know, according to, you know, in-ring skill set plus presentation, not just, you know, maybe buzz or a look, you know, a certain look that might seem cool for TV, but when the bell rings, they're certainly not ready for prime time. So that's, you know, that's kind of the situation with her. If Tessa ends up in the WWE, I mean, my God, how, you know, we could be here for days on how many matchups she has in the WWE to work on. So I hope you're right, because, you know, I'll give you a 6-pack of whatever beer you like. You know, you tell me your favorite one, and I'll ship it to you.
We'll drink it together.
All right, we'll work it out.
We'll work it out. All right, here's the last one on my list. Marty Scurll.
Marty Scurll. Marty Scurll, believe it or not,
A tricky one.
it's a tricky one, but I think that Marty Scurll would probably work best going to AEW. Most people would say, "Yo, Lou, are you crazy? WWE, bro, like, it's like, come on, are you stupid?" And I said, no. Marty Scurll has all the talent in the world to show up on NXT and work it out, right? The thing is that if both Marty Scurll and Jay White show up at the same time, you can have, you know, if there's ever such as too much of a good thing, you know, you can, what's this called? It's called the, you know, an embarrassment of riches. And what you don't want to have is, if you want to debut both of these guys, you know, even if you keep them separated, or, you know, you kind of temper them, it might be too much of a good thing. And I think that for Marty, he would work out very well in AEW, because I think that his gimmick would work very well there. And I think that Marty could be able to, you know, to be a good leader of a stable, which AEW is very much about stables. And I think that Marty would do very well there, being a stable leader, where he could be, you know, a guy that, you know, I could see a Lance Archer rolling with him. I can see, you know, goodness gracious, I'm trying.
Any villainous, like, obviously, like, kind of villainous.
But what I'm saying is that Marty, he's technically good. He's a very good wrestler, so he can get in there and work matches. But Marty is small enough and is enough of a gimmick to be a manager, so he can play both roles and do them very well. And I think in AEW, they're going to have to commit to allowing him to get heat as a manager first, and then when he comes to step in the ring, it's time for him to get his comeuppance against baby faces, because Marty Scurll has to come in as a heel. And in no way, shape, or form, even if the crowd goes nuts because they're like, oh, we love Marty Scurll. Marty Scurll still has to completely commit to being a heel. Because it's the only, I don't want to say it's the only way that it'll work, but it'll be, in my eyes, the best way that it'll work for him as an introduction. So as much as I think that Marty would be fantastic for the WWE, hands down, he'd be fantastic for them. But for some reason, at this moment, I think that AEW might, that relationship might be more beneficial for both parties.
All right. I'm gonna bunch my thoughts. Like I'm gonna give you my thoughts all together right here.
All together now.
All together now.
All together now. All together now.
If everything was fine and dandy, I'll always want. If I'm a fan of you, I'll always want you to go to AEW instead of WWE. That's just, I feel it'll work out better. But based on what's currently happening in WWE television, where for me, it's a bit stale. There are not a lot of people who, I don't want to say they're not over, but I want to say that there's not a lot of excitement around a lot of the talent. I think AEW is fine in that department. I think people are excited for a lot of the wrestlers there. They want to see what's going to happen next. They want to see what's going to happen next with an MJF, with a Darby, with a Sammy. You know, I can probably go on forever. But I think because WWE needs the excitement, I want everyone to go over there. It sounds crazy, but remember the excitement.
I spread everybody around, and you're just like, everybody.
No, in a perfect world, I would probably say Marty's perfect for AEW, literally perfect. Obviously, those are all his friends over there. I
don't really care about his friends being in AEW. It's more a matter of his talent and what he can bring to the company.
Yeah, so I mean, I think he's perfect for AEW. I think he'll get over as soon as he gets there. He'll be over.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
If he just keeps doing what he was best at, whatever. He don't change anything, he's already over as soon as he walks through the door. Dalton would be a tricky one. I think his personality is big enough for WWE. I don't know. I don't like how he's been looking lately. I'd like for him not to wrestle in that damn brace. It makes him look older. It makes him look like weird. If he has to, he has to. There's nothing you can do. You know, maybe he should wrestle in his one piece, his entrance gear. Maybe he should remove the wings and just wrestle in the onesie type thing, so that he can cover that up. He has enough personality and he has enough in-ring talent. His in-ring talent kind of looks good for New Japan.
Yeah, but the style that New Japan works would just kill him, man, physically.
You know, I think the New Japan style is not besides when they go crazy, like at the G1 and they wrestle 100 days in a row. I think unless you're the main event, if you're a main event guy in New Japan, they demand a lot out of you. You're asked to work 30-minute matches that are hard hitting and super exciting and balls to the wall. But if you are a mid-card guy, you get your opportunities to have these big matches, but you don't have these big matches all the time. They have their 5 or 6 or 7 guys that are always in the main event. It's going to be hard to get up there. Not that Dalton doesn't have the ability. He does, but
I don't know if with Dalton Castle has anything to do with his ability. It's a matter that he would go to Japan as a foreigner, and sometimes what ends up happening is with the foreigners when they get there is the audience looks at them differently, and then when you see the way that he works, and he's an excellent in-ring worker, that might be a quicker route to elevation for him up the card, which could then put the strain on his body, having to work longer, more intense matches. That's really the point with Dalton Castle. It's more a matter of being able to put him in a situation where his personality can be bigger than the work that he needs to do in the ring to get it over,
Well, Lou, I can tell you right now that the NXT style, AEW style is still dangerous. The only style that's probably not super dangerous is main roster WWE.
Well,
Which it depends because some of the guys still want to go out there and kill it. Drew's not gonna be like, okay, guys, let's take it easy.
no.
Roman's not gonna be like, let's take it easy tonight.
Well, but here's the thing. Those guys are physically at the top of their game. A guy
No,
like
I know. I'm talking about for Dalton's sake.
But a guy like Dalton Castle, again, this is the reason why I said Impact Wrestling, because I think that for him, his personality would be able to get him over huge there. I'm not saying that he's going to have to work any less or, or phone things in. I'm not going to say that he would do that, nor would Impact want that. But at the same time, he's a guy that can show up to Impact Wrestling, be able to do some pretty cool things. And his personality and his work has enough equity that he can be a main event star for Impact relatively quickly. And I think that he'd be able in that environment to work much better because of the fact that their schedule is very light. They only do television, and it's not as taxing on his body physically to have to work there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just assuming all things are equal, that everyone is fine. No, there's no, nothing holding them back.
WWE.
And if I look at it that way,
I would have sent them to WWE.
Based on what I'm seeing, I don't think AEW needs any more high mid-card talents. I think if they can get a CM Punk, AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan, something like that, that's
those guys are main event players in that environment.
Super main event, like legendary, damn near, those type of guys. Those three guys are like.
Listen, in the world of independent wrestling, if you can insert CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, or AJ Styles, that is the equivalent of signing Hulk Hogan back in 1985.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
today's environment for the independent wrestling world. Now, I disagree with you when you say that AEW doesn't need any more of that kind of talent. My response to that is yes, they do. They need more of those talents because of the fact that it's going to do a couple of things for AEW. Number one is that it's going to solidify their card in terms of having better matchups to where they're not necessarily having to introduce all this young talent and elevate them to the point where they're putting them in situations where they're not necessarily ready, from an experience level or from a presentation perspective, meaning they're not been presented on TV enough. Number two is that it will help all those younger talents to have more better talent to work with, whether it's on AEW Dark, whether it's on Dynamite, whether it's on pay-per-views, or, they don't do non-televised stuff, but let's just say that for the sake of argument, they get to a point where they might do, smaller tours or whatever at any point. It gives them more guys to work with and better talent to work with. So I disagree with you. I think that for AEW, if they can sign those talents at reasonable prices, and again, if it means that a few, the guys at the very end of the bench, if they need to be cut loose, so be it, because it's a matter of, generating a better income and a better product for your overall presentation. So
the reason I say that is because to me, in my opinion, they have enough guys like that. They have plenty of guys like a Dalton Castle that are not getting television. Sean Spears, Scorpio Sky.
Yeah, I agree. I can buy that. I can buy that.
So I'm not saying not to take them eventually, but for right now, the near future, free agency right now, the people that are available right now, I don't think they need them. I think they have enough on their plate right now. They got to get all these other people on television. They got to figure things out. Now, like I said, if it's somebody like a CM Punk, you bring him in. That's too big a star to not take. And he works a similar style. Like, he can work in that style. I think it's a perfect fit, and it's a huge name. I think if you want to add young people that just for development purposes, to have them, really, really young people in 21, 22 years old, that's fine. You can hire as many of those as you want. I prefer to see a guy like Dalton Castle in NXT, or if he wants to continue, if he wants to be used probably a little bit more, go to Impact, work that for a year or two, and then go to NXT or whatever. whichever route he wants to take. If he wants to go do New
Yeah,
Japan
man.
for a year, if he wants to bounce around a little bit, that's fine. He'll be fine. But I just think back, if WWE is gonna bring some excitement, I think they need to make a lot of noise. It can't just be okay. We're gonna, every now and then we'll sign somebody. They need a lot of noise. They need to make it quick. It needs to be fun. It needs to be anything can happen. If for me, from what I would want to see, it reminds me of when all the New Japan guys left. AJ and the Good Brothers and Shinsuke at the same time.
Yep.
There was a lot of excitement for WWE. There was like, oh, when are these guys gonna show up? Where are they? When are they coming? And when AJ got there, and it blew the doors off the place, and that excitement, it didn't last forever.
And here's the thing, and here's the thing, it still took AJ Styles about a year or so before he really got over in WWE. It took him about a year.
To me, he was over as soon as he walked through the door.
Well,
based on reaction.
Well, yeah, based on reaction, but
obviously
the way he was put on the card. The way he was put on the card.
WWE, yes. WWE was like, okay, let's take a step back. Let's not give him everything at first, which is fine because they eventually gave him.
That's the correct thing to do.
I don't think so, because you're taking a huge risk. Not everyone's as good as AJ and can climb out of weak booking.
Well, here's the thing, right? It's just that when you're the WWE, and again, they have an embarrassment of riches in terms of how much talent they have. I think that for wrestling fans, and rightfully so, they get frustrated when they see all these big name stars wrestle in the WWE, and yet we look at them and say, why do they look less than? And the thing is that sometimes it could be a matter that when you house all the top stars, it's like when you have all the tippity top stars in one house, all those guys that are main eventers in all the regional promotions and the other independent places where they worked prior to showing up in the WWE, they were main eventers there, and they had tremendous matches, and the fans recognized them for their skills and their talents in the positions they were in those smaller promotions. But when you come to the WWE, it's almost like not everybody can be at the top, even though everyone has the talent to be on top.
Well, here's the problem, Lou. No one is on top. No one feels like they're on top. Kevin Owens, he felt like he was on top as soon as he worked with Cena. Then, he's holding on. And he's just so good.
And that's a testament to his talent, because
he is so good that he's holding on, and everything they give him, he tries so hard to get it over.
Yes, he does.
He's obviously good enough to at least hold on, but he should be. He's obviously good enough that he should be in a better position. But it's fine. He's in the position he's in. He's doing a lot better than a lot of other guys that should be at least on his level. Not everyone can hold on. Like, they're not as good as him probably, and they can't hold on to the little bit of main event time they got. But right now,
other guys will get there. I mean, like I told you before, and I said this, and I'm looking like I got egg on my face when I say this. WWE's programming sucks right now, but and I say this because I think SmackDown is actually pretty good. NXT is good but stale and boring. Raw sucks, and I think that what's happening is that even though I can say that, and I recognize that, it almost seems like, again, I keep saying this, WWE is actively trying to make it better. Raw is not succeeding at all. That show stinks. NXT is trying, but unfortunately, it almost seems like it's too slow and it moves nowhere. And they have tremendous talent, but it almost seems like the show moves nowhere.
Well, NXT is lucky that they have all these great workers that storylines don't necessarily matter. We know they matter, but we're just like, whatever, forget the storylines in NXT because there pretty much are none. But at least you get great matches that they're pretty much universally loved. Every now and then you're going to get a really, really, really exceptional match that's going to blow the roof off. So that's a good payoff at least. At least you get that. You're not getting that on the main roster. You're not getting these matches that blow the roof off. So they need good stories. And
unfortunately, you're right about that.
You definitely cannot just go months and months and months. Like, where it looks like you're not trying to get anyone over. Like they give up on everyone. They're giving people who are at least bringing excitement. You get a Riddle, and from NXT he comes up and it's like a lot of excitement around him. I wonder what's gonna happen with Riddle, and it's like, okay, this is crap. Keith Lee comes up, there's a lot of excitement. Crap. Aleister Black, crap. It's just
Aleister Black needs to go back to NXT, rehab him there. Listen, WWE, just do business with this guy already. Put down if there's any personal issues going on there with him, get over it. He's a tremendous talent. Send him back to NXT, let him get rehab, and bring him back to the main roster afterwards.
But yeah, so look, I take those 4 people we talked about: Dalton Castle, Marty Scurll, Tessa Blanchard. Tessa Blanchard is main roster, unless if you want to bring her to NXT, that's fine, and bring Rhea up main roster, that's fine too. I think Tessa makes a lot of noise as soon as she knocks the door down. I think it'll be more exciting, Tessa at the Rumble as a surprise, where everyone's expecting Rhea Ripley. And I think Rhea Ripley now needs some rehab.
The thing is that if you want to rehab Rhea Ripley, in all honesty, I know that I've been reading that WWE is trying to bring her up to the main roster, and I'm thinking to myself, I've been saying it forever that she needs to get out of NXT. However, she cannot get out of NXT the way that she did, meaning having lost, 4 of her last 5 or 6 matches, whatever it's been.
I think it's 4 out of 9.
Whatever the framework is, to go barely 500, leaving. She's not leaving with momentum. She's basically crawling out of NXT. What you do is have her in the Women's Royal Rumble as a representative of NXT, have her win the Rumble, and then that's how you move her on. Give her the biggest boost that you can, moving her up to the main roster. It makes no sense to do it now. Listen, WWE only has to wait another 2.5, 3 weeks. For goodness sake, just keep her on NXT. If you're going to move her to the main roster, at least have her have the Women's Royal Rumble victory under her belt, and then you have a ready-made story for her. Come on, it's not that hard, boys and girls.
Yeah, so I'm taking those 4 talents, I'm putting them wherever. Let's say if you put them all in, it doesn't have to be at the exact same time, but
No.
But you can plan that. Let's assume Tessa's main roster, whatever. That's why I prefer to see her. But let's take the other 3.
You're right. I would too.
Let's take Dalton. Let's take Marty, and let's take Jay White. Let's ease them into the NXT product in cool ways. Introduce them, but take 3 names, big names, and get ready to move them out of NXT, even if it starts now at the Rumble. If one of them wants to debut at the Rumble, Damian Priest or whoever you think, whoever you're not, if you think you don't need them anymore, or you have a great idea for someone, or if it's just Raw needs the help. So let's bring somebody up. Whoever you have an idea for, bring them up. You have 3 people coming. You actually have more because we know the Rascals are there. I don't know about Trey Miguel, who's like Trey Miguel would probably
didn't Trey sign with WWE or no?
Well, they were supposed to sign all 3, but only 2 showed up. So Trey Miguel is in limbo right now. I haven't heard any updates. I'd imagine that he's gonna sign with them probably
Hopefully all is well, man.
in a couple of months. But so Trey Miguel is a guy who, he's like I think he can be a pretty big deal in NXT. I think maybe not win the title, but he can be, North American. He can be in that Gargano type guy.
He'd be a listen. My biggest issue with Trey Miguel when he was in Impact Wrestling is that he looked like a hobo. That was my biggest issue with him is his look. It's just like you're a professional wrestler, and you have. How can I say this? Sometimes when you are as small as Trey Miguel is, he's not a big dude at all. Sometimes, you gotta be able to either have a very different look, which he doesn't, work differently than the others, which he doesn't. So, and he doesn't have the biggest personality. So sometimes it has to be a matter of how you dress yourself up. And the thing is, if you dress yourself up to where you look flat, that the eye doesn't go to you, then I'm like, he could be doing the most acrobatic, coolest things in the ring. And I'm like, well, since every other guy on the roster does similar stuff to you, then you're not special in that regard. You don't cut a killer promo. You're not the biggest dude. And you there's nothing about your presentation when you come out through the curtain that makes me want to look at you and be like, oh yeah, this guy, you know, I don't want to use Rey Mysterio as an example, but Rey Mysterio is a small dude, but the first thing you saw is the cool mask, the costumes. And then once the bell rings, you see all the acrobatic stuff he would do, especially in his younger days. And you were like, yo, who is this guy? And then you put him in there with other wrestlers that can work a similar style. And then you have an entire division built around that. Well, Trey Miguel has those kinds of skill sets. It's a matter of, you know, being able to improve the presentation look so that when he gets into the ring, the eye goes to him, because he doesn't look flat and opaque in the middle of that wrestling picture that's being presented.
Well, that's the good thing about NXT. It's you get some opportunities to work on your character, work on your look, work on your gear, work on the good thing. One of my favorite things about NXT is if you take advantage, that's the place to get in shape at. That's where,
well, yes,
Pete Dunne, you see Pete Dunne looks crazy. He's completely transformed his body.
No, he's a completely
it's like the
different looking person.
The best body transformations seem to happen when people get to NXT. Ciampa, Gargano, go back and watch them when they were feuding with.
Oh yeah,
with FTR.
I remember. They didn't look like that.
They did not look like that.
They did not look like that.
So,
no, sir, they did not.
They got completely shredded.
Especially Ciampa.
They can be.
Especially Ciampa.
Well, they both.
Gargano got shredded, but he didn't get bigger.
Yeah, Ciampa looks big.
Ciampa got bigger and shredded.
So
he did both.
That's the good thing. I think these guys will whatever potential they have, at least with their physique and their look, at least they'll reach that potential there. Trey Miguel, the reason I'm high on Trey Miguel is because he had a feud with Ace Austin in Impact, and it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of good stuff they did, and I was shocked because I didn't think about anyone from the Rascals being like it was a main event storyline, even though it wasn't for a world title, but it felt like a main event storyline. It was closing out shows. They were doing stuff, you know, out of the arena. It was a lot of good stuff. So I do think he has potential.
I will say this: whenever I have a very distinct feeling that whenever Ace Austin next becomes available, trust me, the WWE is going to snatch him up whenever he next becomes available.
Ace Austin, he reminds me more of AJ Styles than anyone since AJ Styles. He's
and he's bigger than AJ Styles.
His body's thicker than AJ Styles. At least his legs. Because if you remember, young AJ was pretty thick.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, he's an impressive looking guy. I mean,
Ace Austin has huge monster thighs.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And the thing is that I look at a guy like Ace Austin, and you know, his hair color notwithstanding, because I think that you know that
I don't love the magic gimmick.
That needs to go. But again, his gimmick right now is not the best. But when the bell rings, the good thing about him is that his gimmick does not match his in-ring. Like the bell in-ring does not match the gimmick. And in most cases, that's a negative. In this case, it's a positive, because the gimmick is not that good and his in-ring stuff is very good. So get him a new gimmick, put him in a different environment where he can mature and grow. And believe me, you got yourself a star there. So, and you know, Ace Austin, when you tell me about, you know, Trey Miguel and how he looked really good working against Ace Austin, I can believe that, because listen, Trey Miguel is good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's not, but Ace Austin, at least to me, is one level above him. And putting them together, it benefits both guys. You know, particularly Trey Miguel.
And they had, I guess they went to the same wrestling school, so they've been friends for a long time. So they have
Wow.
a chemistry, so that probably helped them too.
Yeah. Well, that I didn't know that detail I didn't know.
Yeah, it was a nice little story, nice little piece of business. All right, I think we're done with free agency for now. We'll see
For now,
how those things
to be continued.
turn out. Hey, you have any thoughts on the Nightmare Factory showcase?
Yeah.
Cody Rhodes little wrestling school he has with QT Marshall put on a nice little showcase there.
I gotta admit, I found this on YouTube, you know, kind of by accident, and I just clicked onto it and said, you know what, let me watch this. Only because of the fact that I've always, unfortunately for me, on a lot of talents, I usually get in on them fairly late in the game. Meaning, I discover talents when they're like usually one step, maybe two steps below making the big show. To be able to come in and get to see people on the ground floor and get to see some of these talents from like right out of wrestling school, right at the beginning, it was like, okay, this is a good opportunity for me. I was not expecting to see, you know, great wrestling. I wasn't. I was expecting to see, you know, the ABC 7-step, you know, basic wrestling match that, you know, you see out of every wrestling school. And I did see that out of some. And then, you know, you forgive it because like these are wrestling school students. This is the first time they've been in a professional wrestling school. You forgive it. But I thought it was actually good. I really did enjoy it. I think that you know, the announce team was pretty good. You know, I know that the female announcer, I believe, is Diamond Dallas Page's daughter. The other male announcer, I think that he was a regional guy out in the Southeast, but don't quote me on it.
You talking about the commentators or the ring announcers?
The commentators, yeah, the announce team.
Glacier was the commentator.
Oh, really? Ray Lloyd. Okay.
Which I didn't know until he literally said Glacier at the end, signing off.
Okay.
And I was like, oh.
Okay, so all right, so Ray Lloyd Glacier,
who is one of the teachers.
Okay, yeah, he's definitely one of the trainers, so that's good. Thank you for clarifying that. So Ray Lloyd, and the female, I think that her name's, I think it's like Brittany Page or something like that. I think her name is. Don't quote me on that. But if that is who she is,
I didn't catch that.
If that is who it is, I believe that's DDP's daughter. And I know that she's been on AEW Dynamite before. She's done backstage interviewing.
Yeah.
You know, Dasha Gonzalez is fantastic as the ring announcer. And again, you know, I keep saying this to AEW. You need to find ways to integrate Dasha into the show much more often. Listen, she's extremely attractive. She's great at what she does, whether it's as a ring announcer, as a backstage interviewer, which I think that should be her role. With all due respect to Alex Marvez, they've tried and tried and tried. And listen, Marvez could probably be the nicest guy in the world and is probably an outstanding journalist. But in this environment, he's no good. And I think that by inserting Dasha into that role, which she is much more comfortable, she's much more aesthetically pleasing, but she's more comfortable on camera and is a natural in the wrestling environment. You have to integrate her more because she really is good. And I know that AEW recognizes that, because I'm not saying they don't, but it's time to pull the trigger and have her be, you know, have a more prominent role on Dynamite, because they do so many backstage interviews that it would be beneficial to have Dasha do all of them, because that's going to be a role where she's going to get much more camera time, and more people will get to see how good she really is. But for the Nightmare Factory, for the first show, it was good. And I think that for this product on YouTube, if it continues playing and you know, it kind of becomes like a, you know, not like Tough Enough or whatever, but more like a journey that you can get to follow these wrestlers from the ground floor, I think that's a cool concept. And we can see them, and hopefully the people that do make it, you know, we can follow them into AEW and be able to, follow their journey and hopefully become fans and get behind them from the ground floor level. So I think that was super cool. And I encourage people to watch it, and I would encourage Cody and his crew out there in Atlanta to, continue doing this, continue producing it. It was good stuff.
Yeah, it was a fun little piece of business there. Maybe something they can do after every. I guess they train. What is it? They said 12 weeks.
Yeah, so that's 3 months. That's still not.
3 months.
That's a very short amount of time.
But
to
I
train.
think they do it 3 months at a time, and then they get a new batch of students. So maybe they'll keep doing that. This was the first one, so it's a nice little showcase for potential future students.
Yep.
Look, we're doing this is what you can get. This is how good you'll be. After 3 months, potentially, maybe better. Depends how that natural talent you might have.
And here's, yeah. And I'm sorry, I was gonna cut you off, but I'll let you finish here.
No, I'd like to see. Now that the first batch is done, the first showcase is done, they have other students that are a little bit better. I'd like to see some of the better students work with some of the newer students. They can do whatever the hell they want. It's just a showcase, but I think that'll be cool. Keep seeing the level, keep seeing better talent. And who knows, they might have a nice little fun little side project there on YouTube.
And you never know, you might see, an occasional match with QT Marshall or Cody or Dustin or Ray Lloyd, Glacier. Those are the types of things where you can have matches and be able with the students that show a tremendous aptitude. You can do those kinds of things with them. What I was also thinking is that this could be a good opportunity for AEW, because I know that AEW has a working relationship with Impact Wrestling, and I can only presume that in the future they may want to be the for lack of a better term, it's like the major player underneath WWE that is basically for lack of a better term, assisting the other independent promotions, meaning they can take their students and basically dispatch them out to other independent promotions as things open up.
Yeah, they can
have those wrestlers get more experience that way.
Yeah, they're feeding.
There's no way they're not going to get better unless they work all the time.
Yeah, they're gonna feed the indies, which is great. Because then all of a sudden, it's like New Japan does. They got their young lions. Then they see a promising talent. They send them to the UK or they send them to America.
Absolutely.
For 6 months to a year. They come back with a new gimmick, and all of a sudden they're working on top. It's like,
well, I mean, listen. This is where all of these smaller promotions, they all need to exist. They all need to exist because of the fact that they all keep the ecosystem of the wrestling business going. At the end of the day, we all know that these promotions are not going to be mainstream promotions. They're going to cater to a very niche audience in their localized regions. However, with social media, with YouTube, with all the different internet mediums that are out there, they do have the ability to get a wider reach. So it's all a matter of being able to expose the very best talents that you have and showcase the very best of your promotion, not the things that may work for your local crowd, but good and well won't work in a larger scale. You showcase the very best because all of those ecosystems are going to be they're going to feed the top guys. So it's going to feed WWE, AEW, and let's say New Japan underneath. It's going to feed those groups the most. But as long as that system keeps funneling and AEW has this, has the school and the school feeds the indies, those guys will all funnel back up eventually, whether it's they land in AEW, WWE, or wherever they land, but the system keeps feeding. And that's kind of the way that the ecosystem has to keep going. So that's commendable. That's a very commendable thing for, Cody, QT Marshall, and their guys doing it. Also a shout out to Dustin Rhodes, because I know he's opened up his own wrestling school out in I believe in Austin, Texas. you know, the Rhodes Wrestling Academy out in I believe Austin, Texas.
And of course, you have flatbacks. That's Sean Spears and
Flatbacks. You have Al Snow's school, you know, that with
you're finally getting some schools out there with some names that have made it.
Listen, that's one of the things when it comes to the wrestling business in terms of being able to get, you know, garner the next generation of wrestlers, is that you need to be able to work with people who are professionals and people who have made it, because of the fact that they have a greater understanding. If it's just people that have worked in local indies and then they're training other people, it's fine. They might be able to train them in the ABCs, but they may not necessarily know how to guide you to the next level kind of deal.
Or even having a connection, having connections.
Correct. That's exactly what I mean by guiding you to the next level, meaning having the connections, but also having been there, they understand some of the obstacles and the pitfalls that you're going to encounter on the way there, and they can be able to at least smarten you up prior to you getting to that place. And then once you see it, you can recognize it and then, you know, make decisions, you know, based on what you've been taught along the way.
All right, so we've been gaining some subscribers, Lou.
Yes,
we're heating up. Anything you want to say to the subscribers before we get out of here?
I will say this, guys. You have no idea how appreciative we are of you guys coming on here, however you find us, and knowing that with the subscribers going up, that is a huge positive. You know, we love you and we're very appreciative of it. The one thing that we will ask you to do here is, you know, in the comment section on this video, the one thing I will ask, it's an ask, drop us your name and what city you're repping, because in all honesty, that's going to help us in terms of knowing who our community is. It's a small community, but it's growing, and we want to know your name. We want to know where you're from, so that we can be able to shout you guys out. You can ask questions, you can have comments, you can say, yo, Lou, you don't know what you're talking about. We love Vic, or vice versa. You know, it's just, you know, be able to have those kinds of conversations and be able to have that engagement, because realistically, you know, Vic and I, we do these videos, we have a whole lot of fun, but at the end of the day, we're very happy that you're having fun and you're engaging with us. So we'd like to be able to get to that next level of engagement so we can know your name, know where you're from, and, you know, make this community keep growing and growing, because that's the whole idea for 2021. Keep it moving, keep it growing.
And of course, unite the bros.
Unite the bros.
Like and subscribe, everyone.